In 1992, at the beginning of the year, Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein traveled to Paris to be in the audience for the Valentino show. That's an image of them at the show. Valentino, for those of you who perhaps are not too familiar with me, uh, was owned by my abuser's father, Michelle Riklis. Now, a lot of the information that I share with you guys comes from personal knowledge that, let's say, someone who is researching the so called Epstein case, because it's really much bigger than that. It's not just Epstein, it precedes him, it continues, as I've been trying to share with you. Perhaps don't know the intricacies and all of the people who really should be discussed, meaning like my abuser and my abuser's family. So, for those of you who are unaware of who I am the former SLAVE of this man's son. So, at the invitation of Riklis, Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell traveled to Paris, and among the fashion shows they went to was Valentino. Now, I am in the middle of getting this book out. It's a Merchant of Death, Leslie Wexner. It's volume 2. Volume 1, people, it's really on sale right now. It's like in the United States, we have Thanksgiving week, kind of, and we have a lot of sales. And so I thought, what better way to share my work than to have it on sale for what they call in the United States Black Friday. So it's on sale along with volume 1 on my website, kirbysommers.com. Um, I thought I would also share with you the fact that um, the Riklis family, and specifically my abuser and his father, and frankly, there's a third generation that has been involved with Trump. So I know I'm not going to get to everything, but I'm going to share with you some of the connections that make me work on this every single day because of the information I know. So, for example, on the stage is Leon Black. So during the 8 years, I was this person's SLAVE, and sorry that I have to spell some words on this platform. He spoke a lot about Leon Black. He knew him very well. In fact, he boasted that Black, who got his start working for Drexel Burnham Lambert, and that would be Michael Milken being taken to jail. What I want you to know is that all of these things, even the Michael Milken situation, these are kind of government sanctioned. I know that nobody else has told you this, but the intelligence apparatus uses financial fraud in addition to transportation, in addition to, let's say, um, substance, as became known through Gary Webb's incredible 3-part series, A Dark Alliance, which became a book, and then subsequently, regrettably, it led to his unaliving. And that sometimes people are expendable and are put in jail. Now, Donald Trump ended up pardoning Milken. And at the time that I was this person's, let's say, beck and call girl, for lack of a better word, he told me, yeah, Milken went to Wharton, which is the same school that Donald Trump went to, which is the same school, really university that Ira Riklis went to, and that, frankly, that Milken had learned his trade from his father, Meshullam Riklis. Now, as I said, he was close to Leon Black, who we know was JE's second largest contributor after Leslie Wexner. Now, on the stage, I have a photograph of then President Bill Clinton with Congressman Bill Ackerman. Now, Bill Ackerman is an important figure in the life of Paul Benassi. You are all aware of Paul Benassi. And by the way, I don't even know if I introduced myself because I kind of just started the podcast, but it's Kirby Sommers. It is Monday, November 24th. And basically, I'm sharing with you how I became involved with the so called JE story and why I continue to become involved. And so, Paul Benassi, during one of his depositions, it was a very painful deposition. You can still find one copy or so on YouTube, names as his MK Ultra handler, this guy, Gary Ackerman. And the reason I know about Gary Ackerman is because he is related by marriage to my abuser. Now, my abuser is also related by marriage to Stephen Hoffenberg's partner, who is a man called Al Hirschfeld. Now, my abuser and his family are related to almost every single person connected to the so-called JE situation. And also, they sit sort of above the JE role. However, I pulled up, let's say, this old magazine article talking about everything that happened in 1969. So, with my abuser's family, they were involved with some government work. And in their case, they were involved with Apollo 11, which you can see sort of if you go down to the middle of the screen and you look underneath. Apollo 11 figures prominently. However, they were also involved in creating movies and books and sort of being funnels in much the same way that Wexner would become later, in order to help with what I call cultural conditioning, but which is really just another word for MK Ultra, which by the way never stopped. So, just as an aside, uh, in my 2-volume series, Merchant of Death, Leslie Wexner, I use the example of Joan Crawford, uh, who was perhaps the first fashion influencer long before anybody ever heard about the Kardashians or any of the other so-called influencers. Um, and she was used in order to sell mass-produced dresses, which was a new thing at the time when this happened. Now, I go into it because, of course, it leads into why Wexner was selected to be an arm of the intelligence apparatus of the United States. And of course, we know that it included Israel as well. Now, the other person who is involved with or was involved with my abuser and my abuser's family is the man who helped Gloria Steinem, who I think most of you at this point know was a CIA agent who infiltrated the women's movement. And when caught, they called upon Mort Zuckerman, who was again a very good friend of my abuser's family. But there's more to this because Mort Zuckerman is also a very good friend of David Boies. And you know the name David Boies because David Boies is one of the attorneys, along with J. Stanley Pottinger and Bradley Edwards, who have represented most of the Epstein survivors who have stepped forward. Now, she created, meaning Gloria Steinem, Ms. Magazine, which was funded, and I'm using the word funded loosely because the money came from CIA, by Mort Zuckerman, who also partnered with JE. So this is a multi-generational, as I have said many, many times, and most of you are aware that this is the case. Recurring like the names continue, the next generation comes along and then it continues so that we know that, for example, before Leon Black, we had Eli Black, who became the CEO of United Fruit, which had its own army and which was basically the reason that Guatemala had a coup in 1954. However, in my books, I go into how the role of United Fruit in being a co creator of CIA along with the Dulles brothers. Now, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but I just wanted to say, this is who I am. I'm someone who is sort of like, have heard about all of these people and have heard about all this stuff and kind of then jumped into what's going on when JE was arrested in July of 2019, because I knew that I would find other missing pieces for my own life that I didn't know about. And so all of the information that I've discovered, which is not covered in mainstream, by the way, mainstream would know, for example, what I just shared with you, that Valentino was owned by Riklis, who purchased it from Bob Kenmore, who, in fact, I also met many years ago. A really interesting man. However, this whole field of modeling is an interesting one that serves more than just the purpose of selling clothing. And a second, and I pause because I wonder how much I can actually say on this platform. But a second, it has actually many, it serves uh, many covert things. But another one would be transportation. So, for example, and I wasn't going to talk about this, and in fact, I'm going to keep some names out of this, but I'll be writing about it. A lot of famous men were provided women that they ordered, let's say, through uh, the Victoria's Secret catalog that was put out by none other than Leslie Wexner. So, what Leslie Wexner created um, with Victoria's Secret, which, by the way, was initially owned by a man named Roy Raymond, who ended up somehow flying off the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And again, I have a chapter on that in Merchant of Death. Again, there's a volume 1, there's volume 2. They're available on my website, kirbysommers.com. And right now it's 30% off sale. So you may want to pick up your copy. He ended up flying off the Golden Gate Bridge under strange circumstances. Um, he was in the middle of helping his 11-year-old daughter write a book. And he's also a bloodline, a very important bloodline that connects to none other than Usher. Now, there are a lot of tangents here, and there are a lot of connections that I can't get into in a very short podcast, which I'm going to try to keep this to today. But I just wanted you guys to be aware that, I come from this, from a place of knowledge, so that, my sometimes I'm very suspicious about, let's say, people who write books, such as Nick Bryant, who initially he like many other people reached out to me when I started working on this after JE's arrest, and the one question I had for him, repeat, was, why didn't you include MK Ultra in your book? To which he would say, well, I didn't think it was important. But then, because the Franklin case is connected to the JE case because it has overlapping people. I write about the overlapping people, which, again, Nick doesn't do. Is that I came across really dark stuff uh, about J. Hunter Thompson being involved in something that was just quite horrific, meaning that he was responsible for the unaliving of a little boy at this wooded forest that Paul Bonacci talked about long before the public knew or anyone knew that it was really called Bohemian Grove. And by the way, in my two-volume book on Leslie Wexner, I also show that Ghislaine Maxwell and J.E. were attendees of Bohemian Grove. However, when he didn't even include that about J. Hunter Thompson and other things that I thought were really important about this group of people and how it's not like the Franklin situation began on a certain date and ended on a certain date, or even, I think you guys know that through my other book, my Gerald Ford MK Ultra series, I show that Larry King is related to Gerald Ford, and none of this stuff was covered. Now, Bryant has said that he's worked on his book for 7 years. He's called to appear on mainstream media platforms. Mainstream has not reached out to me. And I'm a little puzzled because clearly I would be at one of my friends says, you're at the epicenter of all of these people. You know a lot about all of these people. And maybe that's why mainstream has not reached out to you. But it's not really just mainstream. It's like, all of these people. So I just thought I would kind of give you a quick overview of who I am and who the people that were in my abuser's life, how they interlocked and intersect with these two characters. And also, Wexner and Michelle and Riklis both attended Ohio State University. So Riklis was with Robert Maxwell, just to add a little bit more. Why not? I'm already talking to you guys during World War II. So at the end of World War II, and the two clearly knew each other. Robert Maxwell was set up by MI6 to run his own news publishing business because, of course, we have Mockingbird Media, and it was good for them to have him run an operation. And we know that later he became involved with not just Russia for as being a covert agent, but also Israel. But then Michelle and Riklis was sent to the United States, where they placed him. It was very much like a Project Paperclip. So it wasn't just the scientists that they were moving over, they were moving over spies. So what they did with Michelle and Riklis was they tucked him into Ohio State University, where he taught Hebrew. Go figure. I don't know who in at that time needed to hear or learn how to speak Hebrew, but that's what they did. And from there, he has a meteoric rise. Okay, so whenever you hear about anybody having a meteoric rise and becoming a billionaire, there's something that's quite not right about it. But I can't get into those reasons on this platform. Hence, I urge you to buy my books or become a member of my Substack, which is where I feel more comfortable, or even my Patreon. And so that they did business together, meaning Leslie Wexner and Riklis. Wexner ended up buying 700 or 800 of Riklis's the learner stores. So what Wexner essentially did after ostensibly um, starting his own company after working for his mother and his father. And by the way, there's no photograph of the Leslies, which was named after him by his parents. His father was he couldn't read. He couldn't read. He had practically no schooling. He came over to this country, and times were tough. Um, he was illiterate. Despite that, when Wexner decided to go off on his own, um, the father he made his father the head of the company. Um, his father has a very interesting background. I include some of the information about Wexner's parents, their early years, and how they connect even in previous, let's call it generations, to the Rothschild family, and to other families that we see their names pop up again and again. Now, another person I wanted to talk about, and this platform does not allow me to bring up too many pictures, is Roy Cohn. So Roy Cohn, we know, was Donald Trump's mentor and attorney, but he was also the attorney and friend of my abuser's family. Um, Roy Cohn was also somebody that the Reagan administration was very close with. And there are reasons for that. Uh, we know that Roy Cohn had what is considered to be his own blackmail ring with Louis Rosenstiel. Louis Rosenstiel owned Shenley's, and of course, Shenley's would ultimately be purchased by my abuser's family, who then sold it to another very well-known family that is still connected to this group. Just that I don't want to drop too many names here because it becomes a little confusing. But I just wanted to let you guys know who I am and how I'm connected to this and why I'm aware that Franklin is no different than Epstein and what became before and what continues to present day. So that when I hear that the Epstein records or the Epstein files are going to be transparent, I think that the people who are well-meaning, who have podcasts and who say, well, but the law says this and the law says that, they don't seem to be aware that even during the Church Committee hearings of 1975, Frank Church was blackmailed by one of these, like a minor led group, let's just say. And I hope you're following what I'm trying to explain when I say minor led group. And so he could not pursue all lines of questioning. And there were people who showed up to give their deposition, 90% of whom were not called. So that what the public received from the church committee hearings was about 10%. We know that the MK Ultra records were destroyed, almost all of them, with a very small exception of records that they forgot. All of that happened during Gerald Ford's administration, by the way. Okay, so that there's just a lot. Hence the reason I write so many books and why I'm always writing and why, initially I'll upload a couple of articles on Substack, and then I'm like, I gauge the response of my readers who have been with me, most of them, for, it's seventh year now. And then I'm like, okay, this is of interest. I'm going to turn this into a book or a series of books. So I hope that I have explained some of why I am still researching the many layers of this monster. I have to call it a monster. I don't want to take Danny Costelero's The Octopus for it, although it's a very good kind of definition. I call it more of a monster because it permeates. So the last thing I want to leave you with is, please don't do party politics. Don't do Republican versus Democrat. Because somebody like me who, saw with my own eyes how my abuser's family went from Bush, Reagan to Clinton to, back and forth. That's how it's done. It's like both are really the same. And it's really us versus them. With that, I do look forward to what you have to say about the fact that, there's all this stuff that the media is not covering and is not pieced together. And the reason why I guess I'm really qualified to be writing the books I'm writing and sharing the information with you because I don't see how else you're going to get it. All right. Well, with that, until next time, guys. Bye.